Hello, folks. I am Rebecca Adams, and I'm back again with Free to Soar. I have Becky Vermeer with me.
Hello.
Perfect. We caught it. Your microphone took it. Yes.
I feel so subdued.
I'll bet you do. I'm sorry. Maybe I tell you what, we'll all chip in about $1,000 and get you a good mic that'll.
Okay.
Yourself, Rebecca.
Yeah, I'll receive that.
I'll bet you would. We also have Sunny Roberts with us tonight. She is the director for the Crisis Center in Taney County. And we have Shelly Barnes here, and you are the court advocate, correct?
Yes.
So we are finishing up some questions here, and these ladies have been really good to just be real honest with us, what it's like to be an advocate there at the shelter. That's a tough job. And I know at one point I was out of work and a friend said, "You ought to do that. You would understand. You'd be really good at that." And I said, I saw what you ladies go through. So Becky, what else do you have for us?
I have a question for you based on what you just said.
Okay.
Tell us, in the presence of these two advocates here, tell us what an impact or what difference did it make in the beginning of your healing journey, knowing that you had an advocate that you could rely on?
Oh my goodness. It was more precious to me than a solid bar of gold. And I mean that. I knew that if I could, even if I went into the office and I was sobbing in their office, they would sit there and accept me for that. They would listen to me and they would help me through whatever I was dealing with, no matter what it was. I knew that I had a trustworthy friend in that advocate. And honestly, it didn't take me long to find out that I could go to any of you. I wouldn't have had to have gone to my advocate. I could have gone to anybody if my advocate was off that day. And I could have spilled the beans on whatever it was I was going through. And I knew, I mean, there's just I don't even know how to put it into words. I say that a lot, don't I? But I knew that I was accepted, loved, and I would be encouraged. I would be given direction as to what I could do with whatever my issue was. It's it was amazing. You ladies are literally my heroes. And in the dedication of my book, I dedicated it to you ladies, to two advocates. And I'm going to read it to you because I think this is an appropriate time to do that. This book is dedicated to every staff member and volunteer of a domestic violence shelter, both past and present. Each one of you is a hero to me. Many untold success stories, as well as my own, would not be possible without your willingness to serve the men and women who have found themselves in a time of crisis. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Truly, countless lives have been spared due to your tireless efforts. I salute you. As you carry on in your difficult work, please know you are deeply appreciated. And I still can't read that without getting emotional because that's truly, I mean every word of that.
It's difficult to hear that without getting emotional because there are days that it is tiring and there are days that it is difficult. But I truly think that it takes the heart to be in it, because today I saw my home health nurse and I said to her, I don't know how you do what you do, because I couldn't go into people's homes and do what you do. So I think it's just finding the right people to be in the right place that makes all the difference in the world. And I think the Crisis Center does have such a unique team of people who truly want to be that for victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. And I'm still tearing up. Absolutely. You're more than welcome.
Yes, thank you. There are difficult days where you're like, is is what I'm doing making an impact? And then you hear something like that, or you talk to one of your residents and they, you recognize the important the importance of the work you're doing and how you're impacting somebody. And it does make all the difference. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know Becky's got some more questions, but I just want to jump in and say, what have you seen? And I realize you ladies are very good about confidentiality, but can you share a story or two about someone that you really saw a huge change? And I know, Shelly, you had mentioned this earlier tonight, that you really saw a big change in that person from when they came in till maybe the last time you saw them, or even within the first 3 months. Is there one that comes to your mind that you'd want to share?
Well, I'm going to share a little bit of a different story because this was actually on my mind today. We had somebody that we put into transitional, and we didn't realize some personality quirks until later. And she was a very difficult person to be around. And it even got to the point for me that I was going to Becky and I'm like, Becky, I'm super afraid I'm going to lose my filter and say something that I shouldn't because I was so frustrated. And then I recognized, I finally, and my husband also said something to me too, to kind of look at her in a different light. And so I did. And I recognized that the reason why she was testing us so badly is because she didn't trust us, because nobody else,
Yeah.
she hadn't had anybody in her life that she could trust. And she was always being cast aside. And so she expected the same from us. And she was pushing our buttons and pushing because she wanted to see if inevitably we would give up on her and push her out too. And once I recognized that and saw that for what it was, and actually, I think we talked about it too, things changed. And she felt more comfortable and she was able to work on healing. And you saw some growth there because she realized that she could trust us,
Mm-hmm.
and that she was in a safe place and we weren't going to kick her out because she was a difficult person generally, in her demeanor. But so I was actually thinking of her today about how when you kind of change your mindset and you see where they're coming from and why that behavior is the way it is, it really it changes the way you interact with them. It changes your reactions to them so that healing can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that relationship is there, because sometimes we do get very difficult people that we interact with, and it's a matter of figuring out why is that happening. And in this case it was a pretty extreme. I'm usually pretty cool and collected, but she got my skin. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Becky, but
I think I do.
I might lose my job. I might say some things that I shouldn't because I'm about to lose my mind. But so that was a growing experience for me to kind of see beyond the gruffness or whatever it was, see what the root of the reason why things were going on or actions were happening. But I have also had other residents that are just, they start off so meek and unsure and just scared and not sure if they can do it, to at the other end of it, they're the ones sharing in support group, and they're the ones buoying up other people and being like, I was where you were a few months ago and now I'm feeling this way, and this is what I've uncovered about myself and discovered. And look into these things and helping grow and build them up and empowering other residents. I've seen that so many times and I love it. And that's what my main thing I loved about support group was, because you'd have both ends of the spectrum there. And it was really great to witness how they built each other up and helped each other to succeed.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Repeat that question, would you please?
Yeah. So what have you seen in improvements in women? Can you think of anything in particular that you can share, maybe over 3 months, or 2 years if they've been in the transitional housing? And what have you seen, and how did that affect you? Why did it affect you that way?
I have one that I can share.
Okay.
A person that had been in our shelter multiple times, to kind of piggyback off of what Shelly said. Sometimes people leave and come back and leave and come back. And you and I have discussed that, Rebecca, that it takes an average of 6 to 8 times before that victim leaves for good. And this particular person had been in our shelter several times and had not necessarily succeeded in our shelter setting. But there was something compelling about her to me, that when she called this last time and wanted to come in, the majority of the staff wasn't necessarily in favor of her coming into shelter, but they made the fatal mistake of asking me my opinion. And when they asked me my opinion, there was something that compelled me that she needed to come into shelter. And it was this time that worked. And nothing was different. We didn't do anything differently than we've always done it. What was different was she was.
Yeah.
And so she had taken what she had learned over the several times she'd come into the shelter program and had begun to incorporate those things into her life. And so she came into our emergency shelter program and aced it, for lack of a better term, as far as setting the goals and making progress, and ended up moving into the transitional housing program, where she stayed for the full 24 months and changed. The difference was night and day. Now, I can't tell you that the difference is still night and day to day because I've lost contact with her, but a divided staff, half the staff thought, no, she should not come back into shelter. This is not somebody that we feel like we can work with again. And I overruled it because there was something about her that was compelling. And so that's one of the things, Shelly talking about, I'm going to lose my filter with this person or whatever else. There's something about, and I use that expression all of the time, make a compelling argument. And when you make a compelling argument, I don't care what position you're coming from. Everybody else may be like, please don't. But like I said, they make the fatal mistake of letting them come talk to me, and they make a compelling argument. And there's enough there that I think this person's not done yet. We need to keep going. And so hopefully I can get the staff to rally around that in situations like that. But no one is a lost cause. No scenario is a lost cause. And maybe somebody comes from another shelter, and in that other shelter, they misbehaved, for lack of a better term. They broke the rules and they were challenging. Does that mean when they come into the shelter, our shelter, they're going to do the same thing? Maybe they will. Does that mean we shouldn't provide services? No. But maybe they come into our shelter and this is a time they're ready. We've talked before about planting those seeds and who's going to nurture those seeds, and this might be the time. And so again, what Shelly said, this person was challenging for me to work with, but all of a sudden there was a perspective change. And now we figured it out. And now we know how to interact. And now we know how to build that relationship to make that change. And so we wear multiple faces all day, every day. I think that we have to be a chameleon in every conversation that we have. And that can be challenging. But if you take the time to do that, you facilitate change. And it's vital to the work that we do.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have a story about that?
I think the story I was going to share is the story that you just shared.
Uh-oh.
You should have went first. But I can think of another person that we worked with. And the first time that she came into shelter, she did not have her children. They were in state's custody. And she like Becky said, she did not use the tools given, and she had a very rough time. Was very much into substance abuse use at that time. Left the shelter, went back to her relationship, and it was a very long time before we saw her again. So much so that it was like, wow. But she came back into shelter. She had her children. She made leaps and bounds progress. I mean, like stunning progress. It was just amazing. And she now is owns her own place, is has been promoted, I think, 3 times in her job, and is a face in the community, is helping other organizations in the community, and even recently gave back donation to the crisis center, and that's how well she's doing, is she was able to finally even just give back, and she's giving in so many ways in our community that it's just phenomenal, and I'm so proud of her, and the changes that she's made have been amazing.
That is incredible.
Mm.
That's got to be more than just encouraging.
Yeah.
When you see that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another one? Because I don't want
overcoming so many obstacles at the same time, when you go from not having your children substance abuse, mental health issues, and then seeing somebody thriving in our community enough to be giving back to our community. Not only is she giving to her children and herself, but she's able to give to the community as well. And it makes it all worth it. It's amazing to see that progress in people.
I bet.
Yeah.
And to think that you had a part in that, because you were there to be a help to her and the other residents as well. It's got to
And
be.
non-judgmental, just like Becky said, when they come back to us again, it's a whole new slate. We don't hold grudges. We don't look back at past days. We don't have a no shelter list. We shelter everybody who qualifies and needs services. And so when she came in, it was a whole clean slate, and what she did with it was just phenomenal.
Wow. I love that part. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have a no shelter list. I love that. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't want to shut down
Think
any
about
other
that
subs.
when you say those kind of things. There are some people that we see multiple times. One person I'm thinking of, two people actually I'm thinking of right now, that are very deep into substance abuse. And every time they call, they will qualify. Because of the situation that they're in, they get hurt over and over and over again. And so we know when they call, they really do need a space to come. We also know, unfortunately, that no matter what we do, we're not going to break that cycle.
Right.
We've tried. I can think of times we've tried and even sat down and said, if you would go to rehab, if you would stop this particular behavior, you could make some changes. And that drug or that alcohol has a hold on them. And those are the struggles that we have, because we know we can't break that.
Right.
And so that's why we celebrate so much the stories where we can see that. Because if that person calls tomorrow, the one I'm thinking of right now, if she called tomorrow, she would qualify. I've made the statement every time she calls, she will always qualify. Then we have to juggle. Are we the right program? Because we can't break that cycle. We cannot. We can give her a safe place for a few days, and we do. And then typically she disappears in the middle of the night, so to speak, because that addiction has such a strong hold on her. And those are the things that can be challenging for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, again, we're willing to just talk about it. We're willing to say, this is a situation. I wish we could make that change, and we can't. So we don't set ourselves up to fail either, when we know there's more here that's beyond our control than what we can do. But we always have the confidence of knowing she had food while she was here. She had a clean, comfortable space while she was here. She had access to hygiene supplies and clothing. She had access to resources. We did what we could.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all we can do.
Mm-hmm.
and those can be tough.
Those can be devastating and heartbreaking when you love so much and you're working with someone who doesn't feel worth it. It can be devastating.
I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, you had talked with your staff, or your staff had talked to you about not allowing the one lady in. Have you ever gotten in a situation where, say, a person is the people that you're thinking of with the addiction issues, substance abuse, would you ever sit down with them and say, this is a repeat time you've come in, which is fine, absolutely fine. We're wondering if maybe we're the right program or the wrong program for you. Would you consider going to another program to see if maybe they would have some tools that they offer that could help you? Have you ever had that conversation? How difficult was that?
I mean, those conversations are hard, but I think we need to do our due diligence in that situation. We know you. We
Mm-hmm.
know you. We know what you're coming from. We know what the experience is. Honestly, we're not the right program for you. Do we care? Will we give you a safe place? Yes. But you'd be much better served if you would go to rehab, or whatever that right program would be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our advocates have to have those hard conversations. If you're not willing to have those hard conversations, you're not in the right place, because it's fair and it's right to say this is a problem. And so there's been times where my advocates have come to me and said, so and so is calling again on the hotline. What do I tell them? How many times have you heard me say, Shelly? You say this. This is exactly what you say. And this is what we're going, maybe it was a person who trashed our cottage, which unfortunately that happens. You sit down with them and say, I'm going to be in your cottage every single day, because I know that this is a pattern of behavior that you're in. And so we care enough to give you the space, but we don't care. We're not going to let you trash it. So we're going to stay on top of it. And I've said that, at the initial onset, they can't even come back until you have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
So we have to have those hard conversations.
What's that been like for you, Shelly?
It's hard, but it's good because you have that history with them. You can be like, look, this is what happened last time you were here. You trashed the cottage, or you never came and met with me, or whatever the issue was. This needs to not happen this time. Or if they had an issue with substance abuse. So you're just like, you have that history with them, and hopefully you've built a relationship with them. But you can let them know from the get-go, if you're the one who's actually answering the phone, and to see if the qualify to put them in, or when you're just having their initial intake with them. But it's good, and you're like, don't take it personally, but this is
Yeah.
how it was last time, so this is what's going to happen. And I had a resident like that. I had to do a cottage check every day, and it was always a problem no matter what I did. But I mean, she knew.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's hard, but at the same time, it's good that you have that history, so you know what to expect, maybe know what they're more apt to do, to make sure either you change your approach, you maybe offer more resources in the beginning for rehab or counseling, or whatever it is, that their existing issue already is. You're kind of ahead of the game the second time around, or the third time around, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not easy, because I mean, these are grown-ups, and you're like having to go check their room to make sure they cleaned it, like you're their mother.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, I can understand that would be embarrassing. And so I feel bad for them in that respect. But part of me is like, well, hopefully this will just motivate them to clean up.
Mm-hmm. But you know what I see with that, and I saw it when I was in the courtroom over and over again for different things. When I came back to the place where my family lives and everything, and I was having to go through court, I chose to. I wasn't having to. I wasn't required to go, but I chose to go. And I saw a repeated thing, is that that judge essentially is like the replacement of a parent. And that judge can say, this and this and this, I can see in your life. Um, you know, this is what I'm going to make as my ruling. This is what you're going to have to do before you come back in my courtroom again. And then if you come again, and then whatever his stipulations would be, or hers. But I see that with what you're saying too, because you're kind of coming in there having to take the role of a parent to a certain degree, and you're like that mom that child never has cleaned up their room, and they've just trashed it every single day over and over again. I just continue to see that. um, what do you say to that, Shelly? What do you see?
When I see that,
I mean, do you see the correlation there?
yeah, I do. And I've seen that with judges too, where they kind of have to mix a consequence. Sometimes there's some mercy in there, but there's definitely judgment. We try to do it with more mercy than judgment,
Mm-hmm.
so that, or possibly helping them create better habits, or try to understand why this is happening, or give them tips to get their children involved in it, or see what the root cause is of it. We had an old coworker who said that you can tell by the state of their mind by how the state of their cottage is. Like you can tell if they're suffering from depression or whatever it is, because of the state of things. And when you come from trauma like that, and usually it's based in childhood trauma, it's not usually nothing brand new. It's something that's happened their whole lives. And um they may not even know how to clean a house.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's modeling that for them, and helping them, or giving them ideas to get their children involved.
Mm-hmm.
Children should be little helpers, not
Mm-hmm.
little destroyers.
Right. That's right. Have you ever had to sit down and kind of live life through with that resident for like an hour or two and just observe them with the kids and give them pointers?
No, I've never done that. I mean, sometimes I'll just see it in the natural course of the day if they're around a lot. Some residents with children like to come up to the office because it's a little bit roomier, and so their kids are there, and so you witness it more. But it's a fine line between telling somebody how to parent. You don't you have to find a way to encourage them without disparaging them.
Yeah.
And trying to build them up so that they'll want to do better. And I have a lot of empathy, because I'll be like, I know kids are hard. I've had 5 children, and these are some of the things I went through, and this is how I felt at that age. And I remember how that was, and some of the things I tried to do that helped me out was this, or some things I didn't realize till I was older, but I wish I would have known when I was younger, but it was this. And so I share from my own personal experiences without saying, you need to do this because that's bad or whatever. And it's more helpful.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Did you
you.
have a point you wanted to make about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes when we have to have those difficult conversations, I kind of come into it with the perspective of, I'm getting the opportunity or the chance to maybe shed some light on something that someone's never shed light on for them before. And so maybe they're going to look at it as, oh, this person cares enough about me that they're actually going to bring this out and talk about it, because maybe it's a behavior or a pattern they're doing simply to get attention, and to be able to give them that attention, even though the conversation can be uncomfortable. It can be a positive thing as well.
That's good. Sorry, Becky, I kind of took over with your questions.
No, not at all. Please keep going if you have other things you want to share.
Those are things that were just kind of burning on my heart just from the conversation we've had. And talking before, as we talked about doing this episode or doing this series of episodes.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that we wanted to gather these two ladies with us is we wanted to talk a little bit about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so why do y'all think Domestic Violence Awareness Month is important?
I think it's important. It's our one shot of the year to really have our month to bring forth awareness. It's still something not talked about often enough. It's still something that gets swept under the rug, that gets made light of, that doesn't get talked about near enough. And I think it's our opportunity to take a stand, to say that we're not going to condone domestic violence, that we are going to do our best to, in our community, to bring that awareness and to stop domestic violence in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, that and the opportunity to shed light on misconceptions about domestic violence. I think there's still so many.
Mm-hmm.
And even now I'm still correcting people and I'm like, that's not accurate. But it's a great opportunity. Like at the courthouse, there's artwork everywhere about stop domestic violence and like the purple ribbon and different things like that. And I don't know if that's usual for them because I'm spending more time in the courthouse now, but like where the circuit clerk is, where you can fill out the orders of protection, and in the entry when you first come in, there's a big painting there. But I think it's so great that they are working on drawing that awareness as well, because they see a lot of that there. And I hear from the judges too about how, I mean, he'll share his experiences of what he's seen, and you can tell he genuinely cares about someone who is being abused and doesn't want to see it. Like if they're wanting to drop their order of protection, he's like, I've seen this before and it happened, it ended badly, and I would hate to see that happen to you. Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just so I think the more awareness that can come out there, the better, because it's still an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
It's also our month where we get to do our annual candlelight vigil. And so for those that don't know, it's our program where we have a speaker, we have a speak out where victims and survivors can actually stand up and share testimony, share their story, share what the shelter's done for them, share anything that they feel is on their heart. We have music. It's just a time to come together, to take a stand as a community, to mourn those that we've lost due to domestic violence, and to bring light to those who are experiencing domestic violence. So it's a program that's tear-jerking every single year, and it's just a really neat thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
I liked it that it was always a safe place to shed those tears. Everybody else around you understood that. I love the candlelight vigils and just the purpose behind them, and actually being able to attend one. I miss your candlelight vigils. I really do.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the domestic violence movement as a whole. I've noticed over the years, and I'd be really interested in hearing your two thoughts about this. I've noticed over the years in recruiting new employees, bringing people on, as time goes by, we've talked about Missouri passed the Adult Abuse Act in 1980, right? And so what year is this? 43 years ago. 43 years ago, when the domestic violence movement kind of got started, there were kind of boots on the ground advocates who were really motivated to say, look, this has got to stop, and we've got to facilitate change, and we need to make laws, and we need to influence other people to pass these laws and legislative, judicial stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And when new people were coming on and joining our team, it was easy to get people bought into the movement. What do you think I see that it's harder now. And so what are your thoughts on bringing awareness back into the movement and getting people enthused about being part of this, or a little part of this big picture What do you guys think about that?
I'm wondering if it's harder for people to be committed to that cause because, and I don't know, and I'm just speaking, this thought just came to my mind. I don't even know if it's accurate, but because of social media, we see so many things now that we're kind of becoming jaded to violence because there's videos of violence all the time where you see it and it's just like, oh well, that's just happening or that's just part of life. And so I don't, and that could be nothing, but I don't know if are people more concerned about not being involved, because they don't want to get involved in somebody's drama. I'm not sure why, really what the root cause is, but I think you're right. I've seen a decrease in that just in the short time that I've been there. And I don't know if it's because the movement is bigger now, so it doesn't feel as necessary for people to get involved because it already looks like, well, there's all this stuff going on, so they don't need me, and maybe there wasn't as much of that before, and so it felt more needed. But those are the thoughts that I have on that.
I think too, people are struggling today for income. And
Yeah.
so some of it is about the income. I think some of it is women just aren't rallying like they used to. Women used to rally more in that period of time and be more cohesive as a unit. And I don't see that as much anymore. I think that people sometimes come into even just the crisis center not not expecting that it's going to be hard sometimes. And so when it gets hard, they split. And so just getting people um, maybe with the right educational background or the right mindset to really get bought into the organization itself and the movement itself.
Yeah. What do you think, Rebecca? Do you have thoughts on that?
Our culture is so different today than it was 20 years ago when I escaped and came to the crisis center. We're just not even the same country anymore, really, and I'm not trying to get political here, but things have changed so much. I think about the difference between when I was in high school and my kids were in high school. Well, now I have a grandson who has graduated, been in the Navy, and gotten out. So, I mean, I'm looking over a broad spectrum, a long period of time. And I just wonder if maybe in our culture, there's been so much change that people don't even know what to think anymore. And they're just looking at all of it. And it's kind of like a child with ADD that's, gone into a video game store and there's too much stimulation and they don't know what to think. They don't know where to focus. They don't know how to focus. That's kind of what comes to my mind. I think things are just so overwhelming and it seems like things are just totally uncontrolled and that's probably not the word I want, but out of control, that it's difficult. I don't know if that answered your question.
But I hope it's okay to say, and if it's not, you can edit it out. But I think COVID had a big effect on everybody, on everything, and people were able to not work for periods of time, and now getting back into trying to find people who are wanting to work a 40-hour a week position is difficult because people got lax during that time.
Yeah.
And so we're still, I think, recovering from that as well.
I'm glad you said that. I agree. That drastically changed the world, not just our culture as Americans. Excellent.
And, I wonder, we used to be able to have conversations about domestic violence and talk about the work that we do. And inherently, everybody that you talk to could look at that and see that it's morally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think people were in agreement that this is wrong and that we need to do something about it. And so we've done some things about it. So that, that's my thing is, do we have long-term goals? You and I, our long-term goal is to share education and make sure that people are aware that there are alternatives to being victims of domestic violence. There are places that will help you and things that you can do. So I'm sure that if you pulled the average person on the street, they would still agree that it's morally wrong. But I don't know that people are willing to get bought into a movement as much as they once did. And I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. It's just an observation that I thought we'd talk about a little bit, because I used to tell people when I first started working at the crisis center, my goal is to work myself into unemployment. It's still my goal, but 26 years later, it's more prevalent, it seems, even than it was 26 years ago. And I mean, there's things I can say logically that services are available, so more people are reaching out, so we're hearing more from survivors, which is a good thing. But I don't know that it's going to stop in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So I don't know what our long-term goals need to be, but I feel like if we're bought into the movement, the four of us having this conversation, other people would be as well. How do we stop it? That's still the ultimate question. How do we stop it?
I like your idea, is to round up all the abusers and put them in prison. I just think that's a great idea.
I mean, it would start. It's a good start, right?
It is.
But I think people that are bought in it for the long haul are fading out. That's what worries me. When we say the boots on the ground and the people that marched on Washington, so to speak, and those kind of things, those were fading out. I do have fear for the future. Just to throw it out there.
And I think going back to Sunny's point, and you jump in here too, Shelly. You're awful quiet tonight.
Sorry.
But I think during the lockdown, I think there's been some psychological changes that have happened in society in general, in that we kind of feel like we lost our voice to a degree, or we became more of a hermit, kind of a thing. And no, I don't think I really want to go and make my voice known about this protest or that, thing. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think there's a level of more self-centeredness in society these days. It's all about what about me and how this affects me and how I'm feeling, and less about serving others. And this is a service-oriented job. We're serving those that we interact with who are going through this, and there's less about that. It's it's more about the money, or I don't want to put my emotions out there. I don't want to be emotionally invested in whatever this problem is. I'd rather not deal with it, and so I think that's a big part of it too. I think you're right about COVID, how it did shut a lot of people down. A lot, we lost our power. Some people couldn't even leave their houses, and different things that went on with that. And so and the world is just topsy-turvy right now. And so a lot of people have just kind of hunkered down, and they're like, it's all about me and it's about my family, and that's all I'm going to worry about. And I mean, it's important to worry about yourself and your family, but it's also important as a community to worry about everybody around us, because if our community falls apart, we're in that community, and it could still go badly for us.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
It is a great point.
And I mean, other issues we've had with staffing is it could be someone who has a heart for it because they've just gone through it, but they've gone through it so recently that it's very triggering for them to work in that environment. So I've seen that too. So it's kind of I don't know if it's becoming a narrower field to find someone who fits, or what is up with that. But it seems to be.
I know Becky and I have talked about it a lot because I'll check with her. Like we talk off camera, and I'll say, oh, how are things at the crisis center? Well, we're down 2 advocates, or we're down 1 advocate, or, we've got a full staff. But usually those times when, you're down an advocate or two, and no applicants are coming in, no applications are
Mhm.
coming in, nothing's coming in. And I also see just, and I think this is a collective summary of kind of everything we've said so far on this topic, is that the work ethic has changed.
Mhm.
Pressing through difficult issues, pressing through to a full-time job,
Yeah.
it's different, and it holds a different, or maybe I should say, our society holds a different view on that to a degree. It's kind of becoming skewed. Oh, you don't have to work a full-time job. You just go out there and DoorDash or deliver groceries for Walmart and you'll be fine. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Okay, but the pressing through on a 40-hour a week job, that takes some real tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough stuff.
Well, and it's like I've noticed too, they spend more time trying to get out of work than just doing the work. It's like
Right.
you're exhausting me by as I see you doing all this work to get out of work.
Thank
Or
you.
do the
Yes.
bare minimum. Just do it.
Right.
I love how you said that. That's good.
Plus, I think we're an incredibly small team. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we're down a person, it affects everybody. And when you bring on a new person, it affects everybody. And not everybody can handle that stress
Right.
of having to pick up someone else's slack for a minute or having to learn a new person's personality. And so I think that plays into it as well.
Yeah.
And I know enough about both of you ladies to know that, you don't have this perfect little June Cleaver home, that you have some issues that you have been living through as well. So
Yeah.
can you tell me how you balance that out? Just like you just talked about, Sunny, about learning people's personalities and filling in when they're learning or filling in when they leave or whatever. How do you balance all that? What do you do to leave that stuff at home or behind you and not bring it into the crisis center?
Um, it's not always easy, especially if I have a down day. It's hard not to be low energy or be less than stellar. But I have learned that, like Becky said, it's not about me. When I hit the door, it's not about me anymore. And there's people that don't need to know my stuff. And there's
Right.
people that don't need that stress in their life because they have enough stress of their own. And so to balance that, I try to look at things as it could always be worse. And so I look at, I'm still able to work. I'm still able to take care of my children. I'm still able to do the things that I need to do. And I know that the work that we do is important. And if I'm not there, something is lacking. I'm not that I'm somebody, but because we're a small team, when someone's missing, something's lacking. And so I think it's just knowing that it's important to be there. It's important to show up.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Very true.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's important to leave it at the door. And sometimes it can be freeing to be at work and to not have to worry about the things that are going on in your
Right.
personal life and just focus on the work, focus on helping people. And for me personally, I don't share the things that are going on in my personal life with residents because then it becomes about me instead of about them. And I also have to relive whatever is going on, and it's not helpful for anybody because I'm there for them. And so I enjoy work so that I can just focus on that and But I also know if there's a major issue, Becky and Sunny are going to be very understanding that that's something I need to deal with and to take care of my family. So I think it's balanced very well.
Yeah.
I think Becky has really set a good standard for that, with being very accommodating for what you as employees need to do, in your own life.
Oh yeah, I would have been fired 20 times over at any other job. I've been
Same.
blessed, very blessed. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I tell everybody, and I believe this to be true, family comes first.
Yeah.
So we're in the business of someone's coming out of a broken family. And so we're all about supporting that person in their brokenness and helping them build a network of family in whatever way they find it. Again, how can we do that for our residents if we don't do that for each other? And so in my life, my family is the most important thing. I suspect then when someone comes to work for me, their family is the most important thing. And so we take care of that. That's just the right thing to do. So
Love it.
yeah. I reached into my questions. What question do you have? Any other question? I know. I mean, there's a couple of silly things I could throw out there, but I don't know that we need to do that.
You can.
Which one didn't I do? Oh, I missed one.
Did you?
What do you think we could improve on in our service delivery at the crisis center? We're not perfect as much as I try to prove, as much as I try to say that we are. We're not.
We are perfect.
Sunny must have something on her mind because she pointed out that I didn't ask that question.
The only thing that I can think of is that we all need to get on the same page about cats. Don't adopt cats. Please.
So that's what we have to improve on, eh, Shelly?
Yes.
Wow, that's not bad.
Something needs to happen. But it's been an ongoing battle for me for years.
For years.
Don't feed the cats. Don't adopt the cats. Leave the cats alone. That'll never end, I know.
That's true. What's your answer since you brought it up?
Oh man. Probably more shelter space, as always.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wish we could shelter people longer, just because we went from 2 weeks to 30 days to 60 to 90 days, and still 60 to 90 days in today's world where you're trying to get a job, get a car, get a home, get childcare, all of those things. That's hard to do in a 90-day period. And sometimes I feel like we're just tipping in to get someone where they need to be, and then shelter time is over. And so if we could do one thing, maybe shelter people longer.
I agree with that. I know especially all the issues we've had with housing, how long that's taken to get their vouchers, if they even get them. Like, it's just such a long process, and that has been frustrating because we're still getting phone calls for people who need shelter, but other things are causing these hiccups for people to get housing, and then it's just the lack of housing in general. And I mean, there's just a lot of things working against us as well. What we are doing personally, I think we're doing fine, but allowing them to have more time, which we do on occasion, would definitely be more helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
What is it like for the three of you to have to turn people away because you just don't have room? And I know Becky has talked about the statistics. Tell us one more time. What is it? How many are turned away?
For every one woman sheltered, 2 are turned away. An average year at the crisis center, we turn away 500 adults. Just women. That doesn't include men and children, but a rough standard is 500.
What is that like, ladies? That just would, I don't know if I could do that.
It's horrible. I mean, there's no way to say it any other way than it's horrible, especially when we get a call from the police department or we get a call from the hospital and we don't have space for someone. it's just not a good feeling.
Mm.
The only thing we can hope is that we can give them resources for other shelters, and hopefully another shelter will be able to shelter them.
Yeah.
It's hard too, because usually by the time they've called us, they've called other shelters. And so we're giving them numbers and they're like, I already tried there, they're full. I already tried there, they're full. And it's heartbreaking. It really is, especially when they have children too.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know that they want to protect their children and get away from that. And it's tough. I had one lady call, actually, she was at a different organization and they called wondering what they could do because they weren't as familiar with helping somebody find shelter. And we had one that wasn't quite ready because we hadn't put the beds back in there. And when I'm like, well, we don't have the beds in there right now, but we'll get him in there by nighttime. And she was just like, I don't even care. I just want a safe place for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that just really hit me because she was just like, she's like, we'll sleep on the floor if we have to. I'm like, well, you're not going to have to sleep on the floor, but it will just take a few hours before we get those in for you. But it's I just put myself in that situation about how I would feel if I had small children and was having to flee a violent situation, how I would feel. And I would be desperate, and it would be difficult. And so we're glad when we can provide that, but it's very hard to hear somebody's story too, because they're telling us, they have to tell us why they need to come into shelter just to make sure that they qualify. So we hear their story. Mm-hmm. And it can be really hard to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the good news. When we started recording tonight, I think in the first episode that we recorded, we talked about demo day that happened last week. And the end result of demo day is that we have a new shelter space that we are currently remodeling that will have at least two, if not three, emergency bedrooms. And so when the emergency room calls, when the law enforcement calls, we may not have a shelter space in our 60 to 90-day program, but for the next couple of nights, we've got a bed for you until we can access the resources necessary. So we recognize that as being one of our biggest issues, and so we're actively addressing that. So that's pretty exciting.
That is exciting. Which number is it?
Which number is what?
Cabin number? Would it be?
It's a whole new building.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
We're remodeling a whole new house.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we have a plan. We always have a plan.
I love it. I love it. How far in advance is it for you to have a children's program?
We're getting there. That's as much as I can say right now.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
I have a very specific plan for how that's going to come about, but it's just a matter of the finances being received. I even know they're coming. So it's just a matter of the finances being received to where we can really make some progress on that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I saw the need when I stayed there, and then also when I came to bring things, I saw the need for that. So that is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So the three of us, we're still in it to win it.
Yeah.
we haven't lost the goal.
You guys stay focused. I think you all work together to keep each other focused.
Yeah.
Is what I hear. I love that. I love that. Well, Miss Becky, do you want to give us the hand signal, the international hand signal for help?
Oh wait, that's the wrong one.
No, that's not the right one, Becky. Let's try this again. So if you're in trouble and you need help and you're over in a foreign country and you can't speak their language, how do you ask them for help or let them know you need help?
Take your hand, put your thumb inside your fingers, and you cover it up like you're and you need hiding, you need protection, you need to escape. You just keep doing this. And when someone sees this hand gesture, hopefully they'll reach out for help, perhaps provide help themselves, whatever it takes. But it's pretty easy to do. Anybody can do it.
I love
But
it.
we're trying to promote that, be known as the universal signal for help.
And you know what my grandson said? He said, "Hey, I know what that is." He says, "This means help me." Okay.
Oh,
He's got it down.
Out of the mouths of babes. That's a simple way to say it, isn't it?
Right?
yeah.
Help me. Okay. That's
I
it.
guess this looks like an M. Help me.
Well, actually, in sign language, it's the three fingers that would be,
Close
but
enough.
close enough,
Close enough.
Yeah, I thought that was good. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Ladies, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. I could talk to you ladies for hours, literally, and just pick your brains and just, kind of get in your head and listen to you. This has been fascinating, and I don't want this to end, but I know we have to. So
Can I
thank you
just
for
say that
joining
it's
us.
been a huge privilege and a pleasure for me to have Sunny and Shelly join us tonight. I spent a lot of time talking about the Crisis Center on this podcast, so it's very exciting for me to have two people from our program come and share their experiences. I have nothing but the utmost respect for both of these women, and my life is completely blessed because they're willing to walk this road with me and be on this mission with me. So thank you both for taking the time out of your night. I know you've had long days already, and so it really does mean a lot that you've been willing to share this time with us. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. What the work that you're doing on this podcast is very important. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Same.
Thank you. We're excited to do this, and I try to promote it, but I work from home, so
Yeah.
not around a lot of people. So, but thank you. Yeah, this is just the passion of our hearts to be able to educate people. Anybody that'll listen, anybody that'll watch. Let's get this eradicated. Let's get people notified, educated what this is all about. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, folks, remember that no matter where you are in the process, you're always free to soar.